For those of you who don't know me, my name is Victoria Trezior, and I've had my practice here at the Smooth Aesthetics Med Spa for a little over 3 years. I'm also a spiritual psychologist with non-duality. And in my practice, that's how I actually came up with this, was with several clients. And I'm going to pass how it really got started was through my clients. Even millionaires wanted more money. They had their items that they wanted to achieve to a higher level. So in this creation, basically knowing of how the mind works, scientists have found and discovered that we use images and we use pictures. And our brain processes images and pictures at a much higher frequency than if we were to have, say, a book and were to learn it, which is true. If you go to a movie, you're going to remember the movie much easier as opposed to if you read a book. And it's because that we are all processing things in a different way. So it's basically just another tool to manifest money. There is a little system in science that we've got down on there too, but because of Eula, she's the one that made these wonderful 21 origami hearts, because I take all my clients up 21 stairs. Scientists have proven that it takes 21 times to form or unform a habit. So there is really a science in the numerology of 21 as well. My clients have manifested thousands and thousands of dollars. So there is a reason why this does work. But I'm going to pass it around. And so we're going to do it more in the circle. But for those of you who haven't seen it, I want to pass it around a little bit. And at the end, we'll do the circle. And it's an actual manifesting circle. And in this circle is what we're going to do is I'm going to take a pen and paper and write down your requests, and then we're basically going to pray and we're going to put it out there to the universe of what you want. And for those of you who haven't been here, if you look on the Money Bowl, on the website, A Better Brain, A Better Body, there's a money page now. First of all, it is more than to just do it, which in of itself is a very important step to just do it, yet it is more than just following through. Aligned action is the difference between baking a cake and becoming a baker. Also, too, something of what was said, to be in or come into precise adjustment or correct relative position. That's my favorite. It means that we're spinning our wheels. A lot of us, for instance, that have started business, have spun our wheels. We're at a new place. We can't get to the next level. And why is that? It's because we're out of alignment. We're taking action steps. We're doing the steps that we think, especially in the acting arena and the entertainment arena, we're taking those action steps, but we're not making them alignment with number one, of who we are, and number two, what we're going for. We all know what we wanted to do when we were young. When we get older, we have to make a living. You know, young kids are wonderful. They're the best manifestors. You know, they're the ones who like, I'm going to get this, and sure enough, they get it. Because number one, they don't know, and they don't know otherwise. They believe in it. And so therefore, they have the universe helping them to bring it to them. And so if we can kind of have that little bit of mentality, number one, just doing what we really love to do and what we're meant to do, by having more of that aligned action, you will see a change. There's a lot of little steps to change. It takes a village to raise a child. Why doesn't it take a village to have a successful business and our dream? Co-create, although I'll get back to the aligned action, because I want you to really spend some time. I don't have a sheet here like I usually give out, a little questionnaire, but really spend some time this week and think about, are you in aligned action for what you want? If you're happier doing something making less money, it's not on the actual dollar amount that I'm trying to get at. This is just here to help co-create our desires, our wants, and our wishes, as well as money, because we need money to have a better lifestyle. I want to get to the main topic of today, and it's kind of in alignment with aligned action, as Richard likes people to be able to follow through in Hollywood. And let's give a warm welcome for Richard Rossi.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sure.
Hi, welcome. Victoria asked me to speak about action, which I like to talk about. I had a mentor in Hollywood who was probably the best teacher when I came here. His name is Milton Casales. He's since passed away. But he had a phrase he used to tell us called dreams into action. And he used to talk about how 99% of the people here in Southern California have a dream. You know, the person serving you coffee, the person fixing your car. They say that this is an area where people are working jobs, but it's not what they really want to be doing. They have this other thing, this other dream. But 99% of them don't do it. They don't put it into action. And I wrote some thoughts as I was meditating about this. There's a verse in the Bible, you've probably heard it, and it says that faith without actions is dead. I mean, some of you may have heard that, and it's so true. I have a saying that you can't spell the word flake without L-A. You need L-A to spell flake, and that is because so many people in L.A. have this dream, but they flake out. They don't put the action. They don't follow through, and that's why it doesn't happen. So I have a couple A words to go with aligned action. That was such good alliteration that I'm going to talk about a couple more A's that go along with aligned action, and I wrote them down here. The first A I have that goes along with aligned action is audacity. And we're going to talk about taking action that's audacious, that's really kind of bold action. Not just any action, but also I'm going to talk about also the last A is being an artistic killer. And I give my mentor Milton, who passed away, that credit. That was his term. He told us to be artistic killers and execute or finish the dream. You know, as she said, I've worked as a minister, so I have a lot of biblical stories I draw inspiration from. But one is there's a story of Peter's in this boat. The 12 apostles are in this boat. And Jesus is trying to get them to take a big step of faith and step out of the boat and walk on the water. And so 11 of the 12 say, there's no way we're going to sink. You know, that, and Peter's like, I think that's Jesus out there, and I think he's calling me to walk on the water. And the 11 in the boat said, no, that's a ghost. That's a bad spirit. It's an evil spirit. And there's a lot of people that will scare you and come up with reasons, even sometimes in your own head, reasons why you can't take the audacious action. But Peter goes out there on the water. He takes this bold action. He has his eyes on Jesus, but then he starts to look at all the waves and the storm, and he starts to sink. And that's where we sometimes start to sink, and we get afraid of the obstacles. But then he says, Lord, save me, and it says that Christ reaches out. But the thing I like about Peter, this character of Peter, is he's this guy that'll do something. You know, he'll take action. He messes up a lot. I don't know if you know the biblical story. I mean, he denies Christ 3 times, and he's, you know, cussing at the fire and saying, I don't even know who he is. You know, I mean, he's real, can be kind of a little bipolar, you know. But he'll do something, and so that's what I want to talk about, is doing something. When I made my first feature film, Sister Amy, and Ron Howard's father, Rance Howard, called. He wanted to be in the film. He said, could you bring what you've written so far, your screenplay? And I had all these napkins that looked like this, about 300 napkins. And he was so kind. He said, well, that's good. You're getting it down, but we need to get it. You'll be able to put this into a script. So I apologize that this is how my mind worked, thinking about action. I know it looks like a mess. You know, my grandpa used to say, actions speak louder than words. But again, I want to talk about audacity. Madonna said that audacity more than talent made her a success. She said, you know, I'm a good singer, but I'm not the best singer. I'm a good actress, but I'm not the best actress. I'm a good dancer, but I'm not the best dancer. But I took action with a lot of audacity that got me noticed and everything. There's a website that has all my stuff called Richard Rossi Store, RICHARD ROSSI store.com. It's kind of like a fan site. And here, my first film I wanted to make, and I'm going to give you an example of this audacity with the aligned action, was about Sister Amy. She was a faith healer in the 20s, a spiritual healer, very powerful, one of the greatest female evangelists of all time, a wonderful woman, powerful woman. I admired her because I was a minister working in my young adult years, and I also had issues in my own life I hadn't been able to overcome, and yet I had all this pressure on me because I was doing these healing services and thousands of people were coming, but people were expecting me to walk on water all the time, and so the pressure was enormous, and my high school English teacher, we met for coffee, And he said, my mother just passed, and I found a book in her attic, and I think you'll like this story. And he gave me a book about Sister Amy and how this was a woman that had a lot of personal issues she had to overcome, and yet she had this great impact on Los Angeles. So to make a long story short, I made a documentary about her that was up for the Academy Award. It was a consideration. And then I made a feature dramatic film about her called Sister Amy with actors and everything. I want to make the film Sister Amy, but I don't have the money to make the film. I don't have the $20 million. And, you know, I've never made a feature dramatic film ever. You know, I've made some short films, documentary films. And so one thing I do is I get really quiet to hear the audacious action. I do a lot of prayer and meditation. And then I listen to the still small voice. I listen. And then I'm willing to just charge like Peter, jump out of the boat. So, you know, 11 of the 12 stayed in the boat. So 90% of the people you meet here that are serving you coffee and fixing your car, they're not going to step out of the boat. That's why 90% of the people have a script in their drawer somewhere that they never do. It's that taking the action, the audacious action. So the audacious action I felt to take was to go to the big trades, and I don't know if these are still the big trades. When I made Sister Amy, these were the top ones, was Hollywood Reporter and Variety. I think they're both still pretty big, but it's changing a lot with the whole online world. But it used to be everyone got the physical stuff. It's all changed now. You used to submit your headshot a lot, you know, the actual shot. Now a lot of it's online. But at the time, it was a real big deal to be listed and promoted in Hollywood Reporter and Variety. So I went down there to Hollywood Reporter and Variety. I went down to the offices and said, I'm making this epic film about Amy Semple McPherson, and she's very important to Hollywood. She was friends with Charlie Chaplin. She was this figure that all of Hollywood was interested in the 1920s. And she was a pioneering woman, first woman to start her own denomination, her own church. And we're going into production, and I want it to be in the production charts in your magazines, at Hollywood Reporter and Variety. Now, the honest truth of the fact was, I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything, okay? So they said, well, you know, you always got the peanut person with the minutia, you know, we got this 20-page form here, and you got to fill out all these names, and then it'll possibly be considered maybe. She got to have like a long shot. And on these forms, I mean, it seemed to me like there was like 100 names I had to put, you know, first director, second director, unit production manager, head makeup, key grip, you know, all this stuff. There's about, you know, 200 blanks there. So I thought, well, let me see, it's just me. My brother could probably hold a boom pole. I was like, so I just literally, okay, I asked neighbor across the hall, Mark, can I put you down for something? Yeah, put me down for craft services, you know. So, you know, calling up old friends from high school. Lo and behold, my phone starts ringing that, you know, Hollywood Reporter and Variety. Oh my God, they got my film in here. A new epic production on Amy Semple McPherson, cast and crew, and it has all the names of my friends from kindergarten. You know. And then the kind of religious guilt thing kicked in. I thought, well, that's not really being honest. I mean, this is all BS, you know. And then, you know, one of the guys working with me said, you know what? In a way, though, it's honest on a much more deeper level, because it says in the Bible that through faith, the whole universe was made. And it says that through faith's the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. It said God spoke the whole world, said, let there be light, and there was light. In other words, you have the audacity to have faith and take this action, and it's creating it. Isn't that powerful? That action is creating, you know. So my phone starts ringing, and I got calls from two of Hollywood's royal families. Ron Howard, who's, you know, Opie and Andy Griffith, and one of the great directors. His father, Rance Howard, calls me. A beautiful, beautiful man. My name's Rance Howard. He talks like this. He has a really cool, calming voice. I've always admired Amy Semple McPherson. Before I moved out here with Jean, my wife, and my kids, Ronnie and Clint, we would watch the tent evangelists come through when I was a boy. I loved Amy Semple. I would love to, you know, be in this production. So him and I met for coffee, and he plays Amy's father in my film. Then I got a call from Ireland, from the Charlie Chaplin estate. And they said, this is Bud Moss. I'm an agent for Kara Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter. She really wants to be in this film because her grandfather, Charlie Chaplin, was friends with Amy and possibly lovers. With Sister Amy Semple McPherson. The Foursquare Church will kill me if they hear that part. Her church will kill me if they see that part. They're ready. Yeah. No, leave it in. It'll be good for controversy. I'll tell you some audacious action with this. This is my childhood hero, Roberto Clemente. I made my last film about baseball's last hero. We needed a plane for this film. He died in a plane crash. One reason I love him so much, he was not only a great baseball player, fielded the first all-black team in baseball, civil rights leader with Martin Luther King, great man, but he died like Jesus to save people. He died, his plane went down. He was taking food and medical supplies to earthquake victims. So I loved him as a boy, and I used to go down and hang out in the locker room and watch him play. And when I was 9 years old when he died on that plane crash, and I cried and cried. So I wanted to make a film about him. But here I write this, the plane is the big thing. It's the big end is that, dying in the plane crash to save the people in Nicaragua. I needed a plane. Planes cost a lot of money, especially a vintage DC-10 plane, So, whoa, this is going to take some real manifesting here, man. So, I really didn't know what to do. Now, this is an example, again, of the meditation thing. So, I got real quiet. I try to meditate every morning and evening for about 20 minutes. So, I got real quiet. I was just on the plane thing. It was just what I do about the plane. And I had a name drop. And now, if I wouldn't have been still, that's why it's important to listen. But when I got real still, my friend Al, I have a friend named Al, his name dropped in my mind. Al Nigro. Call Al. Call Al. That's the action. Sometimes an action's small. It could be take a class, make a call. So I called Al. I said, Al, I need this plane for the Clemente scene. I just thought of you, and I was meditating and praying about it. Your name popped in my head. It's like, let me get back to you. Let me get back to you. Al is a wonderful businessman, a very prosperous and supportive person in my life. Him and his dear wife have supported me, and really been a help to me with my work, even financially with the films and things. Well, Al got into this business of selling planes to rich guys and people that need like Learjets, So he's even like, heads of state or evangelists, certain types of people sometimes, they need to be at all these different places. They don't want to mess around with commercial. So he was the perfect person. I didn't know that he knew of the only 2 DC-10s in existence, because the plane he died on doesn't even, they don't make them anymore. He's like, he gets back to me, I think probably within like 2 weeks. Okay, Richard, I found there's 2 DC-10s left, like the kind Roberto died on. One's in Florida. One is here in California, Northern California. That's going to be cheaper, I'm thinking, budget-wise. Let's go with the Northern California so we don't have to, like, fly everyone to Florida. We can just simply go up to Northern California. So the Northern California goes, but the guy's a little skittish. He's willing to let you kind of shoot. This is like one of the last DC-10s. He's like, you could shoot, like, some exteriors outside kind of thing, but no, like, getting to the plate, driving it, and, doing all kind of crazy stuff. I was like, okay, that'll be enough. I get up there, and when you do action from the heart, there's something about love and your action coming from the heart. It just like enrolls people to help you. It really does. So this is the audacity of the action. So I meet the guy at the plane, and I just start telling him about, and I start like misting up. I start telling him about how I love Roberto. When I was a boy, he was my hero, and he died in the plane crash trying to help people, and I'm so grateful to have this plane, and blah, 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 blah. And I start like I'm fighting back tears, and the next thing I know, the guy's like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever you want. It's yours. If you want to go in, if you want to take it around the runway, whatever, man. So we got to shoot on this thing, driving it around and shooting in the DC-10 and and people are commenting like, how did you get the budget to get this plane? How much did it cost you? I said, did it cost me anything? Well, it cost me the gas to drive up to Merced from Los Angeles. That's about it, But again, when the audacity, audacity. You always get negative people when you want to take audacious action. They're like, accept reality. The film's been out a year, You're not going to get all this public. Who's going to want to write about a film that's been out a year already? I was like, man, I got to go back to some meditation and come up with the audacious action, right? So I get back in my wife and I's bedroom. I just lay down on the bed. I'm like, I don't know. I need some guidance. I don't know how to get a bunch of worldwide publicity for my film. Because people I know in the PR are like, dude, it's an old film. If it was just coming out. But there's no way, because I was telling people I need to manifest some real worldwide publicity to get the film selling again, because it's like a year-old film now. So people are like, forget it, Richard, just do something new. No one's going to be interested in it. It's out a year now. So I just lay in the bed. I'm like, give me the audacious idea. The idea comes in my head that he's Latin American. He's from Puerto Rico. And the Pope is Latin American. And he died like Jesus trying to save people. And I need to talk to the Pope and all the archbishops of the Catholic Church to tell them to watch this film and canonize Clementi, since he died as a martyr to save people. Now that sounds just plain cray-cray. Doesn't that sound pretty cray? So if I'm listening to the rational mind, I'm not going to take this audacious action, right? Well, I get up. Now, one thing I learned about audacious action is just go with it. Don't get too into it. Just go. Take the action. Just go. Be like Peter. Just get out of the boat. Because I was so talking myself. There's a rational side of me that's saying that is just plain nuts. The Pope and the archbishops aren't going to be interested in your film, and you're just getting nuts. And people are going to think you're nuts, and people are going to say you're some whack job trying to get a baseball player canonized. I mean, But, so I go forward and I contact the Catholic Church and write letters to the Pope and the archbishops. I get a letter from Archbishop Gomez, who's the head of all the Catholic Church in LA. And it's the largest Spanish-speaking diocese. I didn't know that, but I learned that. It's mostly Spanish-speaking diocese. He's on board. I support you. Great letter. I'm with you. We have this group called Catholic Athletes for Christ, a lot of the famous athletes. I'm going to really push this thing. And let's get in touch with the Archbishop, contact the Archbishop from Puerto Rico, because the way to make someone a saint... Now, I actually believe, between you and I and the doorpost, I don't believe they make him a saint. I mean, in their church they do, but in my mind, he's already a saint. You know what I mean? By the grace of God, this dude's already it. But, in the real world, sometimes actions, we have to kind of deal with the way people in the world do things. So I contact the Archbishop of Puerto Rico. He's good. Next thing I know, keep in mind, all the PR experts told me the film's a year old, it's not going to get coverage. This is only about a month ago. LA Times, story on my film. Will a baseball player leave the next season? Huffington Post. Rossi's Clementi film catalyzing, sainthood campaign for Clementi. Washington Post, Newsmax, Religion News Service, Charisma Magazine, Salt Lake Tribune. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm just literally, it's in papers all around the world. I got so much publicity on the film a couple months ago with this audacious idea. I had Hollywood power players calling me up, and I won't swear, but I'll give you the feel of what they said. They said, "Who is your effing publicist?" I've seen this. I was like, I picked up the LA Times. It's there. Your film's been out a year. You're in the LA Times on the film. It's in the Washington Post. I said, well, I went back in my room and I meditated. I meditated and asked for the action I should take, and I got this idea. It's that combination of wish it, dream it, and do it. It's that believing, faith without actions. Now, the faith was there, the belief. Now, I really believe. Once I do the action, I really believe this is going to, I have that rational doubt side, but I really believe and I see it. This is going to prosper me. This is going to get out there. So that's the audacity. And believe me, in this world, it kind of works this way. The people that take the audacious action, it really does work this way. There's a lot of reasons people don't finish the action, don't do it. Sometimes rejection. Sometimes people use spiritual stuff and religious stuff to talk themselves out of finishing. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine, one of the greatest writers ever, and wrote a novel. I wrote a novel, Stickman, that's out there, a coming-of-age novel. My friend's novel is as good or better than my novel. And this friend says to me, I don't think I said, why don't you put your novel out there and you can be making you money? Oh, I don't think it's God's will. Now, this person comes from a very fundamentalist type of Christian background with a lot of judgment, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. God is this big ogre and he'll smite and smote you if you make a mistake. It's not God's will I put my novel on. Why is it not God's will? God closed the door. What do you mean? I sent it to publishers and they rejected it. How many publishers do you send it to? 2. And they decide it's not God's will. I said, do you know how many people I sent my novel Stickman to? How many publishers? I sent it to 5. I sent it to 500 publishers, and they all rejected it. I got like 2 bites from publishers, from small publishers, and then I sold it to one of those 2 publishers after sending it to about 500. Got my rights back from the publisher, and I put it out myself. I self-published it on Amazon, on CreateSpace, through CreateSpace.com. You can self-publish, and I get royalties from it. So I think that when God puts a rock or mountain in your path, so to speak, or an obstacle, instead of being like my religious friend, that, oh, okay, the door's shut, forget it, is ask for that action of how do you be an artistic killer and get around it, How do you get to the next level? And real quick, I got a few reasons why we stop and don't follow through. The first is what I call LFT, and Albert Alice, a psychologist, I got that from him. Low frustration tolerance, LFT. It's almost like a primal thing. Maybe we were back in the caves, the man had to go out and hunt that animal and bring home dinner, and there's something in women, even if they are successful, they want that man to have some drive and ambition. Yes. And he just sits around and dreams and never makes the dreams, never does it. He wishes and dreams, but he doesn't do it. And so when I was wondering, well, what is the issue with my friend? It's LFT, low frustration tolerance. The minute he gets frustrated and has a block, oh, forget it, too hard. And I'll ask him, well, that was a great idea, why don't you do that? Well, the last time I did something like that, then this happened, and he'll come up with a reason why he got frustrated, and therefore, oh, it's helpless. Throw up his hands, That's the first one, is low frustration tolerance, why we don't follow through. Second is perfectionism. Other two things real quickly of why we don't follow through are fear of failure and fear of success. The fear of success. That's a big one. That whole Nelson Mandela quote that he says about, what if we're not just afraid of failing? What if the reason we don't take action is we're afraid of our greatness? We're afraid of letting our light shine. Jesus has that beautiful thing where he says, let your light shine. Don't hide it under the bushel. Go to the highest hill and let your light shine. And sometimes we fear being out there. And I run into religious people, because I've worked as a minister, where they have some guilt about having money or having fame, But yet, in the name of Jesus, they're afraid of fame, and Jesus is pretty famous. In fact, it said, Jesus, when Jesus went to a town, he tried to get away from the people. He would go on a boat. He said, I'm tired. Everyone's grabbing me to be healed and everything. He said, let's go across the lake. He'd go to the lake. So there'd be 5,000 people waiting there that heard he might be coming there. And then he tells his followers, your fame will be known throughout the nations. You are a light. You are the salt of the earth. Shine your light. You're designed to shine. He's telling his followers the same. So I don't know why in the name of religion people get real weird about taking the action and shining. I've met religious people that have all this guilt about taking a compliment. Like you'll say, oh, I really liked your music. I got your CD. Oh, it's all God. Give the glory to God. Praise God. He gave me the gift. Yeah, well, you're a good singer. Say thank you for, they can't own it, And so, I'm really excited you guys are manifesting it and owning it and taking the action, because that action is gonna really work. I am a star radiating my light near and far. Isn't that a good one? I am a star radiating my light near and far. So I'll turn it back to the victorious Victoria. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It really is just taking the action steps, whether we're in alignment or not, because if we're on the wrong path, God will show us that, and he'll make you get off that wrong path, and you will get on the right path, even if it's different. I feel it's like I have this bowl, and it's a crystal bowl, and I'm like, okay, God, this is what I want. And maybe he gives it to me much different and a different way of abundance than what I'm thinking, but it's like it's always running over. It's always filling up, not just with money, but things and people and situation and opportunities that you didn't have before.